The White House says it is finally set to launch an Ebola offensive, only days after finally coming up with a strategy for ISIS. Besides this looking like the firemen showing up after the fire, does it strike any of you as a sign the folks in charge are all wet? It's pretty clear we were caught off guard by those terrorists over there, a lot of whom we've now discovered are over here. But it's just as clear the healthcare law that would help us deal with Ebola is itself mutating into something that no sudden bureaucratic vaccine can fix. Both seem out of control, and their potential cure is increasingly out of reach for a nation, well, just plain old out of money. Now, we're going to look at this Ebola thing in layers tonight to Dr. Sreedhar Potarazu on how it's mutating and why he's worrying. Tell us what's really up, Doc.
I'm worrying, Neil, because, as you rightfully said, people were sleeping on the job in terms of taking this crisis seriously. And now it's so late in the game that the White House is trying to call a fourth quarter audible with no real play in mind in terms of how to tackle it. And it's multifaceted because they don't have adequate individuals that are trained to be able to handle these people when they land up in facilities here. There isn't adequate education to the lay public in terms of what they should be aware of. And the number of people out in the field that the CDC has or anybody has now in terms of being able to care for these people in West Africa is far less than what is actually necessary. So it's probably going to be worse in some respects than the implications of even ISIS in terms of how far behind the eight ball they are.
You know, you could make an argument, too. The Republicans were just as out to lunch on this because they early on rejected increased funding to deal with Ebola and the spread of this and dealing with this here. Now maybe they might appreciate the magnitude of this. But what is the risk now, only now responding? Are you saying that there's a good shot or that they're aware of more incidents that aren't being reported here in the U.S.? Because this does represent a pretty big old 180 from their position barely a week ago.
Well, it does. And, you know, as you look at sort of the spread of the virus, you know, you could have the infection for up to 21 days and not necessarily know it. So I think the bigger concern is how many people are mulling around the United States right now that have been in contact, let's say, with somebody in West Africa or otherwise, that may be harboring the virus we're not aware.
Doctor, that's what I think has changed here potentially to explain this sudden sense of urgency, that they're aware, or others in Washington are aware, I don't care their political party, that this has now mutated into something that, as some that feared, could be airborne, if not very close to being airborne, and therein lies the mutation fears of all mutation fears, right?
Correct. So there is the mutation fear.
Do you fear that? Do you fear that?
Yes, absolutely, we hear that. And what you also see is the lack of trained professionals within facilities that know what to do when somebody, in fact, contracts Ebola, and they have to be able to provide the kinds of supportive services. So a part of, I think, what you're going to hear in the announcement tomorrow when the president goes to the CDC is where they need to step up all of the supportive services and the support provided within the facilities. I think you're also going to hear how many more people the CDC needs to send out there. And I think you're also going to hear about the Defense Department's role in terms of how they need to support facilities out in Liberia and other countries like that. The bigger question, Neil, is who's in charge? Where's the Surgeon General? Where is the de facto executive in the government that's supposed to be leading the charge on public health issues like this?
Well, it wasn't him, or it wasn't certain, but it was, oddly enough, General Martin Dempsey, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, who said this is our #1 priority right now. And given the timing of this with ISIS, I wondered, boy, what does that guy know that I don't know? Because that worried me. That could be me.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think that when you look at the economics, you know, they've gone back to Congress to ask for another $80 million after $100 million that's already been spent. But without a systematic strategy in terms of how we're going to tackle this and what we're going to communicate to the public. I mean, you and I have both been on planes now, and I don't see the public education happening in airports and otherwise about the risks. And are we even stopping flights from coming to West Africa? Why haven't we? Why aren't we getting more aggressive when we know that we're dealing with a beast that we don't really have a full grasp on?
It is scary, although that might be spelled out tomorrow. Doctor, it's always a pleasure. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.